I am in here with my main man, the Right Reverend Henry P. Davis III.
I'm glad to be with them too.
Pastor of the First Baptist Church of Highland Park, Sheriff Road in Landover, Maryland, and he is a monumental figure in this area. And we thank you so much for being on the show.
Delighted.
It's a blessing to have you. You've not only been a blessing to me, but to my entire family.
His parents, great parents, his brother. You got to give me a report on your brother. And so
he's running for county council.
Oh yeah,
District 8. Oh Lord,
I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear.
He's doing well.
In the thick of it.
All right. Well, let's talk about you. How did you get started in ministry? How did you get started preaching?
Well, it's a long story. I'm a product of a preacher's home, and my dad just retired from his church after pastoring it for the last 40 years.
Wow.
And so he's getting ready to celebrate his 89th birthday. Okay. And I was just with him last weekend as we graduated from seminary together.
Young man.
30 years ago. And so he started talking. He says, well, he says, next year I'll be 90. I said, well, you're just going to skip 89. And we're just going to go to 90. And so he says he wants to be around here till he's 100 plus. So,
okay.
But anyway, let's back up. I was born in Texas. Okay. Grew up in a very religious, kind of spiritual home. Again, my dad being a preacher. I probably started preaching and acknowledged the call to preach in my early 20s. I was probably on my way to law school, so it was interesting. Our daughter just graduated from Columbia Law 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But I was on my sort of trek.
You willed.
Yeah. I willed it in. I willed it in. And so so that ends up being feeding into my life story. And I ended up going to college at Oral Roberts University. Most recently, you see the movie out about Carlton Pearson. Carlton was ahead of me. But I was there at Oral Roberts same time as another figure that I'm sure you all are aware of, Miles Monroe. Miles Monroe, I was in school with him.
Okay.
And but again, I wasn't not necessarily thinking ministry at that particular point in my life. But I guess all of these kind of treks are going on. I end up graduating from Norfolk State University. End up working on a master's degree in public administration. And in the middle of that, I felt like I heard God's voice. Well, I don't felt, I know I heard God's voice. And so I was really ready to scrap the whole public administration piece and then just focus on ministry. End up going to New Brunswick Theological Seminary. I graduated in 1988. Several months after that, started pastoring my first church. And so I started pastoring in 1988, and so really now I'm sitting with my 30th year of pastoring.
Wow!
I spent 5 years at my first church in Lakehurst, New Jersey, another 7 years in Harlem, New York, and then for the last 18 years I've been at the First Baptist Church of Highland Park.
And you have done a great job. You just built a new edifice.
Just built a new edifice. The Lord has blessed us. $20 million project. Woo. Praise the Lord. But we still have a mortgage every month. And so we're still dealing with that. And but the church is growing. And again, that's our first phase for us because we have more that we have targeted to do. We have a senior housing project that we're probably some 18 months away from moving forward. It's a $30 million project. And then we want to build a gymnasium. And all of that right on our plot of land, which we started calling a campus some years ago. And of course, it has really evolved into what we say now is the city on the hill. And so our school, we graduate students next week. We have about 12 eighth graders who will move on to some of our premier high schools in the area. And we have about 220 students in the Highland Park Christian Academy. I put a plug in for that. We have programming this summer in the academy. And so it's a very vibrant atmosphere. Much is going on. 7 days a week in terms of ministry. 80 active ministries in our church. 3 worship services every weekend.
Phenomenal.
2 on Wednesday. 12 o'clock, if you persons are available. In the noon hour, we fill up our West Sanctuary, which is our former sanctuary. We filled that up on Wednesdays, 1 hour of worship, which we call the Power Hour.
That's right.
And then we come back that evening. And so we engage in very active ministry 7 days a week.
So listen, there are a lot of musicians and singers who watch our broadcast, and as I told you off the air, you are a friend. You are considered a friend to musicians and singers amongst the DMV area. What's your philosophy in terms of dealing with having a relationship with your music ministry? How do you cultivate that? How has that been? How come your relationship with your musicians and singers has been so successful?
Well, I would say, and that's a great question, Phil, because I probably have not ever evaluated it from that perspective, but I give you some background. I was a choir member myself.
Okay.
I was, I love singing in the choir. I enjoy singing in the choir. And just so happens that in that same experience, I have siblings younger than me. One of them is a musician.
I gotcha.
And he's a musician. He's a minister of music of a church in Dallas, Texas. First Friendship Baptist Church of the Colony, and so I understand musicians. I understand the talk. Because in essence, I feel like you've got to have that kind of dialogue between the pulpit and the musician, because it's all going to work together. And so even today, we have ongoing dialogue. We can have rigorous discussions and talk about directions musically, all of those kinds of things. Because again, a part of our church, is very broad. You got so many different tastes, from the traditional to the contemporary.
Right.
And then you try to say, well, how in this whole, we got to try to reach seniors and millennials. And we got seniors and millennials all worshiping in one space. So the communication to me is very, very important.
Absolutely.
And I love good music.
Right.
I mean, I think people enjoy energized music, spirited music in terms of worship. And so, I love those connections. I think that iron sharpens iron. I think that, you've been to our church and you've been a blessing to our church. And I feel the same way with other musicians across this country in terms of bringing them in.
Right.
Byron Cage just left us a week or so ago. Gay Arbuckle will join us this summer.
Yeah.
She directed All Women last year during All Women season. She'll return back. And so I don't ever want us to believe that we have the corner on anything. And so I think that's where communication becomes very, very important.
Right. You've been taking your church through a fitness program here for some years now. How did you develop that, and why did you see that as being so important?
Well, when you look at the African American community, you look at health, and health is a critical issue. But I credit our women. Our women started out several years ago, and they started having prayer walks, and those prayer walks, faith walks, ended up turning into faith runs. I'm an active person. I've always been an active person, but it started to spread. And so now at our church, we've got line dancing, we've got martial arts, we have bike clubs. We've got several in our church who've done 100-mile bike rides, 50-mile bike rides. We have a running community. This weekend, we'll do the Baltimore 10-miler, and we've got a whole group who will do that. We just finished with the Rock and Roll Marathon in D.C. We had several to do the 26.2, the full marathon. We had another about 15 to do 13.1. Out of that 13.1, 12 of them was their first time. And I pause it, because I told them, I said, if you track your steps every day and you're not trying to exercise, you're going to realize that you have already covered 6 or 7 miles. So if you add another 6 or 7 miles, and you don't have to run, you can walk it the whole time. And so we had some persons who took us up on it. We had our minister to evangelism, Dr. Catherine Borges Johnson, did her first 13.1. We had others to do it. And then we had a whole slew to do 5K.
Wow.
Which is 3 miles. I said basically, most of us do 3 miles every day. We just don't realize we do it.
Right.
And so it is evolved in terms of trying to keep persons fit. And then we try to change diet.
Okay.
Because if you're gonna start exercise, you also got to start talking diet.
That's absolutely
and
right.
then what do we serve at our church? I mean, I bury persons, and then they talk about they had the biggest barbecues and hey, and then we're looking at them in the casket at 60, 50s.
That's right.
Massive heart attack. And I'm not saying that just because you become fit, you do not have to deal with these kinds of issues, but I think that we can at least bring that down.
Sure. Right.
We used to have moments in our church where we would serve pig feet and chitlins. I said, oh no, we're not doing that. Not anymore. I'm not telling you can't do it. Just like some of y'all are still slipping to the liquor store.
Right.
But you're not gonna do it on these grounds.
Right.
Certain things that we're gonna make a conscious decision that we're gonna move away from, and then I think that kind of thing helps us. Now I'm not the best, but I think I at least try to make sure that I'm trying to lead persons in the right direction in terms of that kind of focus.
That's awesome. Let's switch to preaching. You are a phenomenal preacher. A lot of people know that already. But what is your preparation like each week? Because you preach a lot. You really do preach a lot.
Stay in the Word. Stay in the Word. I mean, even this week I'm preaching, which is really a crazy thing. I'm preaching my own revival.
Okay.
And,
I know people do that before.
Yeah. But I'll do 3 nights this week. But basically, I would answer that question to say that I'm always gathering nuggets through my meditation life, my devotional life, and just trying to grasp things that eventually I might come back to and develop sermons. And so I feel like I'm almost always in the process of developing that next message, whatever that message is. Even before I've come on the air with you today, I've already started working on a sermon I'm preaching tomorrow, and really the whole series of messages I'll preach this week. Normally, by Wednesday, I feel like God has given me the inspiration of the weekend, and so I'll start, at least in a sketch form, start developing what's going to be the focus of preaching that weekend. Like some of my colleagues, they'll do 3 months ahead and 6 months. I'm not there.
Right.
I probably look into more of a fresher, because when I look at it, we're looking at events, whether it's shootings, the violence in our streets, whether it's the political directions of the country, or whether they're world events. And so I want to make sure that we're really scratching where the itch is.
And you give yourself time to turn around.
Exactly. And I'm always, I'll say, I want to be led by the Spirit.
Right.
I want the Spirit of God. I don't want to just be so caught up in my agenda that I'm not open to what God's agenda, which is the most critical thing that we've got to do in terms of the gospel.
Have you ever had to change a sermon last minute?
Oh yeah, it happens.
Like in worship?
It's happened. Absolutely. I mean, you sometimes you come to the pulpit and you feel like this is. Then the Lord said, not today. We're going in a different direction, and you've got to be open to do that. Now everything in our church is all media sensitive. So we got so I got the media team. What I gave you, we made a change. We just made a change, and so we've got to do that. And so sometimes it happens. And I'm telling you, another thing that's happened. Sometimes I've had a bad internet connection, and so a bad internet connection. Because I got so much on my phone.
Right.
So I said, I was planning to use a New Living Translation, but I realized I couldn't get New Living Translation with the Message Bible. I can pull it up. So we just had a change because of technology. But I realized, I think Romans 8:28, all things work together.
That's right.
Yeah. And as long as souls are being saved, lives are being transformed, praise the Lord.
We got 2 minutes left. Who are some of your preaching mentors?
Oh, I've got a
heroes.
Lot. I've got a lot. Many of them in the grave now, unfortunately. But the late Dr. Caesar Clark, Dallas. I mean, I used to love here. The late Dr. Fred Sampson out of Detroit. I'd love to hear him. The late Manuel Scott.
Yeah.
Many of them. Harold Carter.
Yeah. Out of Baltimore.
When it just goes on and on. Jeremiah Wright.
Yep.
I studied under Jeremiah Wright. And so that influence is evident in terms of my preaching. And so, William Augustus Jones. I could go on and on to all of these. Oh my goodness, all these persons who have made real impact and impressions, and I had the blessing of knowing Wyatt T. Walker, pastored right around the corner, and so I've been able to connect with him. And you might not know this. I'm an original board member with Al Sharpton's National Action Network.
Is that right? No, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm an original board member.
Favorite sports team?
Oh man, I'm cheering for LeBron. I mean, after I saw what LeBron did last night with the Celtics, I mean, you gotta go with LeBron.
He might be out of gas.
But he might be out of gas. But I'm not gonna knock KD. We are in KD territory. Kevin Durant has been a blessing. His mother's been a blessing to Prince George's County, and so you really gotta appreciate that kind of connection as well. That a person would be able to rise high but reach back. And so I have enormous respect for that. And so I enjoy sports. So I mean, if my team gets knocked out, I always can get another team. I mean, we can be fine with that. And I really appreciate Phil. Philadelphia, because Philadelphia, when they won the Super Bowl, first thing they did, lift Jesus.
That's right. Shout out to your family real quick, your wife and children.
Hello, everybody. Hello to my wife, to our children, Lilybell, Henry, and again, God bless you. Love all of y'all. Love the support that you give us, and it is what it is.
Thank you so much.
All to God.
Appreciate you.
All right, man. Bless.
We got to have you back. There's so much more to talk about with you.
For more information on how to become a guest on Real Talk with Phillip Carter, or for general inquiries, please email us at realtalkwithphillipcarter@yahoo.com. Tune in next Monday for another edition of Real Talk with Phillip Carter.